Welcome to San Joaquin College of Law Today, a show dedicated to issues and events within the law school which are of general interest as well. SJCL Today is produced by San Joaquin College of Law, a nonprofit law school in Clovis, founded in 1969 to provide quality legal education. Over 88% of its graduates have passed the California bar examination. More than a quarter of the practicing lawyers in the Fresno area are San Joaquin College of Law graduates. The date was October 18th, 2019. San Joaquin College of Law celebrated its 50-year anniversary with a Reme-mixer, a chance for alumni and friends of the law school to reminisce, mingle, and celebrate their success along with San Joaquin's. Classrooms throughout the building were decorated with pictures and memorabilia from SJCL's 50-year history. In addition, there was a brief ceremony featuring the dean, a board member, and one of the founders.
Okay, we're going to try and get the show on the road so that you can go out down and visit and eat. And be sure you go in and see some of the displays around in the different classrooms. Every decade of the law school is represented in one of the classrooms, and you might see somebody that you know. In any case, welcome. Happy 50th birthday, San Joaquin College of Law. We are very fortunate that we have one of the founders, Judge Oliver Wanger, here. To say a few words, we tried to bring John Lewis in by phone, but he's recovering from pneumonia, but he thought he would be coughing too much. So with no further ado, I will invite Ollie to come and talk about long ago law school getting started.
I'm not sure I'm going to need this, so we'll see how it goes.
Turn it off.
All right? All right. Thank you. Well, it doesn't seem exactly possible that 50 years ago, in 1969, Dan Iman, who was then a municipal court judge, John Loomis, and I had been out of law school about 2 years, and the three of us got together with the idea that from Los Angeles, sort of to Stockton, but really to Sacramento, there wasn't another law school. And there were many people in the Central Valley who simply did not have the ability to travel or to go to those other schools. And one of the things that motivated me was I taught for 2 years at that time, Humphreys, that was based in Stockton, had some classes in Fresno. I was at a hotel downtown next to a room in which a band played every night. So there was always a contest to whether the students would hear the band or they would hear me. And my sense was that they heard more of the band than they heard of me. So nobody ever came to see whether I was teaching. Nobody ever asked me if I gave a final or any kind of exams or what I did. And our consensus among the three of us was there must be a better way. We knew also that, again, this is 1969, that at that time there were people who would have the opportunity for a second career. In those days, parents committed to the raising of their children, and quite frankly, they sacrificed and gave up the opportunity to essentially be actively engaged in a profession while they raised children. This would give opportunity to those individuals to essentially achieve a profession. And of course, there were many people who might not have done well for very many reasons, either in high school or in college. And for those who were committed and who were willing to commit and to do what it took to study law and to take the bar, that was our objective. And so, through Judge Iman's relationship with the head of Pacific College, we rented a classroom in their round circle and started with a night school. And what I was told when I went to law school was, those of you who have come here to learn about law, that's something you can do in the bar review course. We're going to be dancing angels on the heads of pins, and so that's where you are. That was not our objective. Our objective was to essentially have a faculty that had real life experience in courtrooms, as lawyers, people who had essentially not only studied academically, but had real life experience, and that was our commitment to our students. We started out our first class in 1970. We had 11 students, and there were two relationships that made a huge difference for us. One was Judge Iman also had a long-standing relationship with Gordon Shaver, who was then a Superior Court judge in the county of Sacramento. Gordon Shaver also was one of the early deans at McGeorge, before McGeorge essentially got acquired by another school. Additionally, Gordon Shaver's best friend was a fellow named Reme-mixer, and Reme-mixer was really better known, quite frankly, as Perry Mason. And the one thing we know about Perry Mason is he never lost a case. And whoever was opposed to him always confessed and admitted it on the witness stand, and he won the case. That was our objective, of course, to have all of our students achieve that kind of, if you will, success. So we started out with our first class, and the other relationship was Judge Iman got to know John Gorfinkel, who was the State Bar educational consultant. And he was, at that time, someone who believed in not only the best of the law schools, but law schools that served, quite frankly, different student bodies and different, in some sense, different achievements and goals. In the final analysis, our first class, we had to take the baby bar. And I will say this not to do anything but just give you reality. Because I was the youngest, I got to form the nonprofit corporation, to get the tax exemption from the IRS, and to work with the State Department of Education to get our original authority before WASC accreditation, which came about 5 years later. So, our first class of 11, 100% passed the bar. Our second class of about 14, 100% passed the bar. And John Gorfinkel said, all right, you have provisional accreditation. 2 years later, after our first graduating class in 1974, we're ready. We got full accreditation. They told us then it was the fastest any new school had ever gotten full accreditation. And we don't take credit for that, but we thank goodness and God for our fearless leader and his contacts. And so we started at Pacific College. By the time we had 4 classes, we had 4 of the classrooms there. We actually built, Pacific College let us build a library on their campus. And when about 12 plus years later, we then moved to Shields Avenue, just east of First Street. We actually bought that building. At that time, quite frankly, we sold the library back. They decided that we wouldn't be permitted to keep it. We sold it back to Pacific College, and we then started this is just into the early 80s, and that is when, quite frankly, a miracle occurred, and that was that Jan Pearson appeared. A dean after, quite frankly, Judge Iman, John Loomis, and I had all served as deans. We didn't do very good jobs, quite frankly, because we all had other occupations full-time. But the bottom line was Jan came in, and the miracle of this law school is almost completely attributable to her. She is absolutely not only a miracle, but the best of the best. So, while she had decided that we needed to renovate part of the, what had been, I can't even describe what it was, but at any rate, to make it a little bit more habitable for our students, quite frankly, we had to use some nearby, if you will, turned out they were both churches, for our classrooms. And so I had the opportunity to teach from the pulpit. And our students were in a position where they could say, all right, we can accept this. We can live with this. This is what it should be. So at any rate, we got through the 80s into the 90s. I left the private sector in 1991 to go to the federal court. And shortly thereafter, about 4 years or more, the school moved from the, well, I'm going to call it Midtown. And of course, one of the great events of that was every night, we actually had to jump across the wall onto, quite frankly, a neighboring, it was a sort of a shopping center, but there was a donut shop, and so everybody at that time, our classes were 3 hours long, and they started at 6 and they went to 9, and usually later, at least my classes usually lasted later. And so we would take that break, go to the donut shop, and then most of us got back without breaking a leg or anything else, coming back across the fence. So, in the 1995 era, quite frankly, the school moves to Clovis. At that time, the court overwhelmed me, and to my great regret, after more than 25 years, I stopped teaching. But when I left the court in 2011, I did come back to teach constitutional torts, and I must say, it was great. I don't think the students thought it was great. Back there, you will find Melissa White, and Melissa White was my co-teacher in that course, and of course, I'll let her do the teaching, quite frankly. And so it was all good. So, what can we say about our school? And that is just look at the success, look at the achievements of our graduates, and there may be faculty members now who do dance angels on the heads of pins, but also our students learn the law, they understand ethics, integrity, the rules of professional conduct, that we always have the loyalty and, if you will, the client's protection. They always come first, and that's part of what makes this school what it is. So, I'm going to say one more thing. Thank you for putting up with me. You probably all have heard this before, but this is one day past the annual passing of my wife, and I want to give her tribute that she so well deserves.
board chair, Doug Noel, to come and make a few remarks about maybe the more recent events around the law school.
So Justin Atkins and I were talking about what's going to happen in the next 50 years. And it's interesting that I'm here because last week I was at Creighton Law School in Omaha, Nebraska. I was giving a training at the Nebraska Bar Association conference, and Creighton asked me to come over and talk. And they talked about the myths of the law and how many of the precepts of law are now basically rebutted by neuroscience. And the challenge of the next 50 years is going to be to reconcile empirical science with the fundamental assumptions the law makes about human behavior, which are essentially wrong. And how do we manage that? And how do we prepare our students and the young lawyers to recognize that the concepts that have been in law for hundreds of years are no longer supported by the science? And that has enormous policy implications, social implications, justice implications. And so I think the next 50 years is going to be even more exciting than the last 50 years, because not me, but the people following me and all of us, Ollie and Jan, and those of us who've been around for a while, are going to have to start wrestling with these very, very difficult problems. And that is going to be the challenge of the next 50 years. How to educate lawyers in a way that prepares them to solve the deep paradoxes that our society is going to face as science eclipses our understanding of human behavior and human assumptions. And I think that's where we're going to go. I will just say that I've been, I don't know how long I've been the chair of the Board of Trustees. It's been a while, probably too long. But the board, how long?
20 years. You're the board chair.
Really too long. The board takes its role very seriously. And students come and go. We've had a very stable faculty, but students come and go, and the board sits year after year after year. We have new people coming on, younger people coming on. But we are deeply committed to legal education here in the San Joaquin Valley. And we look at the larger trends that most people won't look at because it's our job to do that. And, you know, we obviously have been concerned about bar passage rate and the education, that sort of thing. And so I just want you to know that the board is deeply, deeply committed to this law school and to its future and to meeting the challenges of the future. And that every single board member is deeply committed to the institution and to the service it provides to the Central San Joaquin Valley. And that, I'll turn it back over to you.
We're not going to read them because they're very long, but we have proclamations that have been sent to us to celebrate the 50th anniversary. Is there a representative of the city of Clovis here? In any case, we have a proclamation from the city of Clovis. We have one from the county of Fresno. And this lovely document up here is a declaration from, a proclamation from our state senators and state assemblymen in this district, printed up and presented to us by, oh, this is a lovely mic, a representative of Andreas Borges' office this afternoon. I also want to acknowledge and present to the individuals who made donations to support all of the 50th anniversary celebrations. And several of them are here this evening. I told you John could not be here, but Rich Caglia is here representing Frank and Lucille Caglia. We have a lovely plaque for them. It's rather heavy, so be careful. So we'll make sure that he gets his. And, oh, in fact, he took it with him. And finally, little light. That's the individuals in the Trailblazer category. They also have groundbreakers here. And this came from the Lori Renton Mendez Foundation and Anthony Mendez, who's a member of the board. And Sierra IP Law and Mark Miller. Well, we don't get that from him. Other individuals that donated that were not able to be here this evening was Michael Diaz and the Diaz Law Firm, Steve Spencer, Lisa Smith-Camp, and Nick Singh. You're not going to believe this, but we also have plaques for professors that have taught more than 25 years. So the first one in that category is Lawrence Artinian. The second is David Camenson.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the U.S. Congress for adopting the Internal Revenue Code
The Honorable Jonathan Conklin.
They obtained from churches. I worship at that property right now.
Kathy Kesselman. Wilson Trust. That 25 years is a long time. We didn't want these plaques to become dated, so we just said more than here, so that it continues to be valid. But in case you thought 25 years was a long time, this one is for more than 40 years of teaching at the law school, and it's actually 42 years. And this is for Barry Bennett.
Those labor pains sure last.
Thank you.
You know, I'm still practicing, and those of us who practice and who like it get no greater joy than teaching other people about it. It's just fantastic, and it's nice to see the light go on in some people's eyes when they understand they like what you do and encourage them to do it. And I've always admired, especially, as Holly said, when the early schools, people working full-time all day and going to school at night, they worked so hard. I mean, they still work hard, but it was inspiring for a teacher to see students that were that committed, and also a faculty that was composed of the best practitioners in the community who gave their time to teach. So it's been a lot of fun, and I still enjoy it, and it's just, the school is wonderful. Thank you.
the people who worked hard all this year, and particularly the last 6 weeks, to make this event occur. And if you have been up and seen some of the exhibits, you can see that a tremendous amount of effort went into it. I'm not going to list all the names, but it is listed out there, and please thank them. The exhibits in the other room, it was an experience for us in putting them together because we learned a whole lot more about the history. But they really tell the story of the law school. And as you go around in the different rooms for the different decades, be sure that you stop up here on the second floor in front of the courthouse, because there's a representation of what the interior of the new law library will look like when it's completed. What the rooms are like. There's even some examples of how the furniture might be placed. It's actually more a study facility than a library in the classic sense, because we don't have books anymore. I remember when we desperately worried about getting as many volumes as possible, and then they just said throw them all away. And we did. So, if you look at those renderings, I think she may have left already, but Gretchen Friedman, Daryl Friedman's widow, was here earlier. Daryl has, and he took pains to make sure that this was done once he knew he was quite ill, has made a very large gift to help with the acquisition of the building, and it's actually a lease purchase. We make lease payments for 20 years, and then we buy the building for $1 at the end of that. But he's made provisions to help with that renovation. It won't completely cover it, but to help with the renovation and to help with the payments for those 20 years. So that's really a phenomenal gift. So if you happen to see Gretchen or Ryan or other members of their family, please thank them. I'm done. Go eat, talk, oh, the cakes. We have 7 cakes in the shop room. 206 is cutting cake.
5 years prior to the 50-year anniversary celebration, the 45th anniversary was celebrated at the Downtown Club in Fresno. During that celebration, we pulled some of the alumni off to the side to collect some memories.
Probably what sticks out in my mind the most is Professor Cartier, and really seeing him at the Shields location before we moved to Clovis, because I spent most of my career in law school at the Shields location, and Mr. Cartier smoking, and he would always stand like a flamingo, and he would perch. He was like a bird. He was perched, smoking his cigarette. And when I see him here today, that's like the first thing I say to him is like, call him a flamingo, because he was like one leg up. It's very awkward. I can't even do it. I'm not even that limber as Professor Cartier was. So that is one of my most fondest memories of San Joaquin College of Law. I had the time of my life, believe it or not, because some people say law school, you don't really have the time of your life, but I did have the time of my life and got the best education ever.
Yeah, I remember Judge Caton was our criminal law and procedure professor, and I think it was probably the first year we all showed up, and and you're sitting there up, and we were at the Pacific College location, one of those, lecture rooms anyway. So we're up there. You called on the first person, they weren't prepared. Called on the second person, they weren't prepared. Called on the third person, he or she wasn't prepared. He slammed his book shut, walked out. That was that. We waited 10 minutes and left because he was done. So that was pretty interesting. I guess it made a good impression. Be ready, be prepared, work hard. I think the memory that I would share is the awesome professors I had, the instruction we received, the intensity, and the fact that you could, at least I worked, went at night and worked part-time and finished debt-free.
What are some of your favorite memories of San Joaquin College of Law?
Well, favorite memories were the study group that I was with. I was with 3-4 other guys that we studied together quite a bit, and we were fortunate that we got along. We all passed the bar the first time through, so that was good. But one of the best memories is the first night we showed up, a bunch of us had gone to college, and we're used to just showing up for class, not being unprepared. And Dean Loomis was teaching our first class. It was torts. Cannot remember the case, but he asked if anyone was prepared and ready. There was 125 students that freshman year. 2 people raised their hand, and he called on one of them. 2 hours later, we took a break to go get some coffee, donuts. This was on Pacific campus. And when we came back, the gentleman that had been answered, Dean Loomis, said, "We will start again with Mr. let's say Smith. Mr. Smith, is Mr. Smith around?" And he'd flown the coop, never returned. So he started on the second person that was prepared. We got done at 9:30, and he said, "We'll take this up again next week." We decided law school is not like college. You better be prepared, and it made an impression on all of us. You know, if people have a chance to go to law school, especially this school, since it has practical factors and stuff, if you have to finance it, because you'll come out, you'll be older, but you'll have a law degree and you'll have a career. And the career is in and of itself worth it.
I had an instructor named James Lupino. He's passed away now, rest his soul, but he was a good guy. But I sat in the front row for the first few weeks, and we had quite a few in class at the time. And when I got to class, I was usually very, very tired because I was working full-time in my own business, raising a family, and law school. And when I got to class, I'd sometimes doze off. And finally, one day, he'd had enough. He said, "Hey, you," he says, "you're going to sleep in my class all the time. Next time, bring a pillow." So the next week, I brought a big pillow, sat it down, fluffed it up, laid down, and went out for 3 hours. The following week, he lays out a very intricate fact pattern and spins around and points at me and says, "You, answer the question." And my friend, one of my best friends in law school was Ed Hunt, the former DA. I said, "Sir," I said, "my name is Ed Hunt. I don't know a thing about anything. I don't know anything." And Hunt's in the back yelling, "No, no, that's Aaron, I'm Hunt." It was great. We had a lot of fun in law school.
My favorite memory was my first semester and the first time I was called on in Oliver Wanger's class. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And he asked me to review a case, which of course that's what he did. And I remember going into autopilot, reviewing the case, and then sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I probably messed it up because everybody was silent. And then he said, "Exactly right." And I thought, oh my gosh, I was totally speechless. I didn't know what to think. I really think the advice that Oliver Wanger told us that first semester, he said, you don't have to be the smartest or the most brilliant person, but you do have to have tenacity. You have to be able to persevere. And if you're willing to do that, you can make it.
What are some of your favorite memories of San Joaquin College of Law?
Our first year there was, I had Ollie Wanger, who taught us criminal procedure, and Judge Loomis taught contracts, and Dan Hyman taught torts. And the first year, it was really hard work. You know, I had to spend a lot of time. And Ollie Wanger gave us a midterm, and that's all we had, is a midterm and then a final. But we never got our grades back. Got our grades back from Loomis and got our grades back from Hyman. But I never got the grade back from Ollie Wanger until 2 weeks before the final exam, which was, you know, almost the end of the year. And he gave me a terrible grade, 55, I think it was. And had he given me that grade when at midterm, I probably wouldn't have been the second semester. so I owed it to Ollie for me even being there. So later he became a good friend of mine, a tennis partner of mine, so we had a good time.
You think you would have put Ryan if you saw that 55?
I think so, yeah, because it would be very discouraging. I mean, but at that time, they didn't have, we were all held very close to the failing range. And I was just talking to John Loomis about it, and he was just, he said, yeah, we kept you guys really close to failing.
I don't really have any stories to tell, but I just want to say thank you. It was a wonderful experience. It was very interesting. It's something I always wanted to accomplish and achieve. My teachers were great and outstanding. It was so nice to have actual practitioners, judge or attorneys out there teaching us. My fellow law school students were just great. I just thought it was just a wonderful, great experience. And I was so happy that it was here locally so that I could achieve that goal in my life.
I thought I was the oldest one in the class. I had been working in the federal court, and I knew he wasn't Judge Wager then, he was, but I was working for a federal judge as a secretary, and I knew many of the attorneys that came in and judges. And I thought, I'm going in the first day of the first class of the first year, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want anybody to see me. And so I looked, it was Wanger's class, and sitting up about halfway in was this big, broad-shouldered guy. So I thought, I'll sneak in behind him and he'll never find me. So I went in very quietly and I settled down and I got things out, and I'm sitting there quietly trying to be little, which I can't be. And he turns around and he says, oh, hi, my name's Warren Papugian. What's your name? And I thought, well, so much for hiding. But that's the kind of class we had. Everyone just really helped each other, and I never felt out of place. They were just wonderful, and they're still my friends, and I'm so lucky because I was old enough to be their mothers and then some when I started. And now I've got a whole bunch of younger friends. Yeah, and this school was that way. We had lots of fun and I worked myself to death because I knew I wasn't going to make it. It'd been 30 years since I'd been to school, and I had no problem. It helped me make more money and have a wonderful retirement and make a bunch of friends that a lot of my friends are no longer living, and they've still got friends, you know.
A memory that pops into my head is in the first week, walking the second floor hall and waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder and tell me they'd made a mistake and that I really wasn't admitted to law school. I remember that feeling. And then the feeling of 4 years later succeeding. I recall in my first year studying with a group of individuals who were significantly younger than I, because I was an older student. And one of those that I started law school with graduated a year ahead of me, but Greg Fox and I started law school together, and we were standing outside talking in between classes, and I said something along the lines of, well, I graduated high school in 1982, and he said, I believe I was learning to ride a tricycle. I would like to add that I am immensely grateful to the founders of this school. Had San Joaquin not been founded, I would not have had the opportunity to go to law school. My daughter is my life, and I could not have left Fresno to attend school. So in the absence of a school, that was not an opportunity, and I'm so grateful that they founded the law school.
Do you have a special memory of San Joaquin College of Law?
Well, I think one of the things I remember is when I started, we were still on Shields in that little tiny building, and I remember when we finally, I did the 4-year program, so it was right in the middle of that the school moved into the new facility, and I just remember thinking, wow, you know, now I'm really at a school, not going to law school in what looked like an old dentist's office or something like that. I just remember thinking Professor Purvis was, I was lucky if I understood what he was talking about, but I really appreciated how brilliant he was. And I felt very challenged by him and his classes, and I'm sure that it helped me later on in my legal career realize being able to think like that.
I had a really good time in law school. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I took on Judge Ardice one day single-handedly and made the class roar. I watched Professor Cartier and Professor Artinian race their cars in the parking lot, but I would have to say the most memorable experience that I had in law school was just being given the opportunity to attend San Joaquin College of Law. But for San Joaquin College of Law, I would not have had an opportunity in one of the traditional law schools, and I think that has been my passion with San Joaquin College of Law all these years. They gave me an opportunity to prove myself once I was admitted. Other law schools would have probably wanted to prove myself to get into the door. But this school, I believe in, I'm passionate about, and I sincerely believe it serves a very, very huge need in our community. So for that, I thank you, San Joaquin College of Law, and I thank you for all of the people that support San Joaquin College of Law, and I will continue to be a passionate supporter of San Joaquin College of Law. Oh, you know what? I think the best story that I have that you can play back at the 50th anniversary is my story about Professor Ardice. So I got to tell you, I love the guy. He's an icon, but his head is also too big to get into the room where I sit now. But I still love him, and I think he loves me too. But my most memorable story about Judge Ardice was the day that he walks into class and he says, I hurt my leg snow skiing, and it was on a run called Regulator Johnson. And my response to him was, so it regulated your Johnson, right? And he looked at me, Mr. Caglia, do you know who protects me? And my response to him was, sitting in my chair with a wife beater t-shirt and a skull cap and a toothpick in my mouth, I said, do you have any idea who protects me? And the class roared. And him and I were friends from then on, and we still love each other. So that's my most memorable story about one of my professors. Rich Cartier used to say that his two favorite food groups were nicotine and caffeine. And that was always, you could always see him couched in the corner smoking his cigarette. That was a memory. And I think he'd make a great chairman of the board. And then my favorite memory of Larry Artinian was actually going to the gym and getting pumped up and rolling up his sleeves so you could see his arms in class. That was my most favorite memory of Larry Artinian. So there you go, 3 professors, 3 funny stories, and a sincere passion about the school.
One of the best things that came out of law school, aside from my career, is the fact that I did meet my husband in law school. And the two of us were pretty much inseparable from the beginning, which really helped. We were the type of couple that could actually study together and motivate each other. And I really credit him with the fact that I was successful in law school. This part of the video needs to get cut out. No, it was a really funny story about Jesse Molina, actually. We were in torts first year, and Dean Pearson called on Jesse Molina to answer a question about causation in negligence, and he couldn't think of the term for whatever the causation was that he was trying to come up with. It was actual cause, and so he was like, I know what it is, I know what I'm looking for. And Jan turns around and starts going like this to remind him. And what she was trying to get him to say was but for causation. But in order to remind him, she was smacking herself on her but for. And everybody started laughing, and we would joke about it with Jesse from time to time. So this school has been really, really important to me. It's been a good, I've devoted myself to this school for the last 6 years, ever since I started. I was incredibly involved, and every experience in school really mattered to me and really has shaped me to be where I'm at today. And I'm very grateful for everything that this school has done and for the amazing faculty and the amazing staff. And I'm really grateful.
So you want a funny story? Yeah. Okay, I got two of them, and then Flora has to say something. The first one is, in the second week of class in civil procedure with Judge Wanger, I became convinced to the point of paranoia that he was going to call on me that night, and I broke out in hives. Okay? So that was really a bad beginning to law school. The second thing is crowns the end of my law school career, is that I was waiting for the mailman to give me my bar results, and I fainted.
I didn't know that.
And the next thing I know, the mailman is leaning over me with a big envelope, fanning me, and I'm just staring up at the sky, and he's going, "Come on, counsel, get up." Oh. And that's my story. All right, Flora.
The mailman did not give me my letter. I went to the post office, and I got the envelope, and I opened it, and I started jumping up and down like a total nutcase. Yeah, it was good times. But yeah, funny story. Now I remember. First day of law school, Jan Pearson, I didn't know it was Jan Pearson. She was having a hamburger at the classroom, and she was at the back of the class, and then when she was done with her hamburger, she went to the front of the class, and then I realized that was our teacher. She looked very young, all of 12. Long dark hair, round glasses, adorable. She's still adorable. I love you. Love you, Jan. Okay, bye.
One that was kind of funny that kind of made Dean Jan a real person was one of my good friends going through law school was Sean Neal. She wanted to be called Sean. Her first name was Patricia, and she did not like that first name. And we had torts with Jan, and doing their Socratic method of calling on students, Jan called out, "Patricia, Neal." And my friend Sean sat there and just froze, mortified. And Jan up there in front of everyone said, "Oh, shit." And she hit her forehead and she said, "I mean Sean." And that just kind of made us all realize that, okay, she's a dean, but you know what? She's a real person, and we can talk with her, and she makes mistakes too. So.
Do you have a memory of San Joaquin College of Law that you would like to share?
I think we can actually say that we had fun in law school.
We did have fun in law school. We were probably the only two people that actually had a lot of fun in law school.
We did.
Our grades probably reflected that we had a lot of fun in law school.
That's true.
Yeah. Eddie and I have been friends for many years before we went to law school. So we sat together a lot during our classes.
A lot. We sat together in every class.
Yeah,
and we usually sat in the front row.
Yeah. We weren't honor students.
No.
But
and we did like to talk in class.
We did.
And because I thought if I sat in the front row, we would not talk, but that didn't always work.
So we sat in the front row and we still talked.
Yeah, we talked tonight. There were speeches when we talked. We shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, we shouldn't.
But
have.
it kind of was like old times. It was nice.
Yeah. But the good news is we both graduated, we both passed the bar, and we both had fairly successful careers, I would say.
Yes. Despite, tell them your story of contracts.
Oh, despite the fact that we both got 9s out of 100 on our first contracts midterm. 9.
And the teacher thought that we actually, he said, unless, what was it that he thought, nobody could have done this, and because we sat next to you, they thought you may have cheated, but I got 5 on one and 4 on the other, and you flip-flopped or something.
Yeah, and I got 4 on the first question and 5 on the other, so he knew we didn't cheat.
That was Larry Artinian.
It was Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we had a great experience at San Joaquin.
Yeah, I loved San Joaquin. I love San Joaquin mainly because of her and the school, too.
It was a great, great, great experience.
Well, I think my best memory of going to San Joaquin College of Law is I met my beautiful wife there. Her name is Christina Roberson now. At the time, she was Christina Widener. We were pretty much inseparable. We were each other's best friends, study partners, a good shoulder to cry on. After we graduated, we both graduated the same year in 2012, and a year after that we got married. So that's a fond memory that I have. Also, I like to say that San Joaquin gave me the opportunity, being a small school, to be involved in activities I normally wouldn't have been able to be involved with if I went to, say, a bigger school. I was fortunate enough to be part of the trainer moot court competition team. I also was given the opportunity to write for the San Joaquin College of Law Agricultural Law Review. That was a great experience. It helped hone my skills as a future practitioner in legal research and writing and tackling very complex issues. Also, I was fortunate enough to serve as the editor-in-chief of the Law Review my final year there at San Joaquin. So all in all, it was A collection of a lot of great memories. I'll always be grateful for my time there at San Joaquin.
My favorite experience, one of my best experiences at the school was at the end of 1992, early 1993, when we left Shields Avenue and arrived in our new home. I spent my last semester at that school, and it was an enlightening experience to be in an environment where learning was almost so easy. It made studying for the bar exam twice a pleasure. It was wonderful to be able to go to the school and see that warm, inviting building, welcoming me there to study and learn and prepare for the next phase of my life, which I've been enjoying since 1998. I guess one of my other fondest memories would have been when I hopped online back in 1998, and the thing spun around for quite a while when I hit the enter button after I punched in my name to find out if I passed, and it said, your name appears on the list of successful candidates, and I screamed out to my friend John Breckus, who had previously passed the bar, what does this mean? And it means you passed. And we were hugging each other and falling over, and our secretary came from around the building and tackled us, and we were rolling around in the parking lot, and then of course the pride of being able to call your family and say, you did it. Thank you, San Joaquin College of Law. 50 years, you've done it, you'll continue to do it as well. Thank you.
Do you have a memory of San Joaquin College of Law that you would like to share?
That brings back good memories. Getting to law school was interesting. Living in the Bay Area, teaching high school. I'd been fired from my last job and was looking for work, but not in teaching. My mother sent me a clipping from the Fresno Bee that said San Joaquin College of Law had the second highest pass rate on the state bar in the nation. I thought, wow, second highest, Fresno? Why not? So I went down to speak with Jan and asked her about the school. I went to an open house, and then I thought, I think it's worth a try. So I sat for the LSAT. What I didn't realize is the LSAT wasn't like a college exam. It was more like a law school exam. And I did not study for the LSAT because it was too difficult for me to even imagine a test that I couldn't pass with flying colors. However, as it turned out, the LSAT surprised the daylights out of me the night before. I was reading through the booklet, reading some sample questions, and I thought to myself, this isn't fair. It can't be fair. You got to ask questions that people can understand. And I don't understand these questions. So I sat for the LSAT the next day and managed to get a respectable score, but nothing like some of the people I've met. Despite all that, I was accepted into the San Joaquin College of Law. Jan was instrumental in helping me start on a 3-year program. She enabled me to start in the summertime, taking 2 courses outside of Fresno. I took 1 course at San Joaquin called Agricultural Law with Riley Walter. I was the only beginning student in the class. Everyone else were graduating that year. And so they didn't like me very much because I asked fairly simple, stupid questions. Nevertheless, they were grateful that at the time of the final exam, Mr. Walter gave a simple college type of exam, not an IRAC type of exam. And I think they attributed that to the fact that I wouldn't have passed a serious law school exam. The other class I took, I started at McGeorge School of Law. On the first day of class, the dean came into the classroom and called out my name, asked me to pick up my things, and asked me to come out in the hallway so she could speak with me. She said, you can't be here. I said, what do you mean I can't be here? You're the one who admitted me in the first place. And she said, well, you can't be here because you're going to a CBA school, and this is an ABA-rated school. So I'm sorry, you can't take classes here. And that put me in a bind because I had to find a class quickly to get through my program of 3 years at San Joaquin. Jan said only one other person had ever done it. Now I understood why. It was difficult to find another class. And Jan, she didn't remember this, but it's true, she was pretty ticked off at the dean because she says, I've done so much for that person, and she didn't allow you to stay. I can't believe that. Well, found a class down in Whittier, and actually it's Fullerton at Western State School of Law. It was a family law course, managed to pass it, and I was on my way, and I finished in 3 years. That's my story. I'm sticking by it, and I got to thank Jan for being so understanding and so helpful, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to go to San Joaquin. It's a great college.
Back then, McCormick, Barstow, Waite, and Cruth weren't quite ready to take local Fresno Night Law School graduates, so they'd go back east and recruit all these ABA law students.
because nobody in California seemed to want to come to Fresno. So they'd go get all these kids from Indiana and places like that, and they'd bring them out here during semester break when all the hills are green, and they'd fly them up over the lakes. So those kids would get all excited about how green and verdant it is here, right around spring break. They'd go back, they'd graduate from law school, then they would show up for bar review that was held at San Joaquin College of Law in about mid-June. Now by that time, all those hills are dead. It's 106 degrees, and they would stand out there in the parking lot in little circles, shell shock. We luckily stood under the parking places that were covered where the dean got to park, so her car didn't bake in the sun. We always kind of laughed. I think they probably all came back here, got 1 year on their resume, and took off. Didn't take long for McCormick Barstow Waite and crew to realize that some of the best lawyers in this area are people that grew up here and went to San Joaquin. There's a bunch of them working there now. In 26 years since then, there's never been any point that I've been ashamed to say that I went to San Joaquin College of Law. It's a well-respected law school, and we can all be proud that we went here. We grew up in the valley, we got educated here, and we stayed.
My life has broadened immeasurably due to my law school education. I have several experiences that were not only humorous, but even more importantly, beneficial. And I would especially compliment Sally Paring, Jan Pearson, Jeffrey Purvis, Richard Cartier, whose wife happens to be standing behind this camera right now, and Larry Artenian, and Denise Kerner. I was an amazing suck-up in law school. I got every basis buck David Kamenson ever offered because I wanted to get the highest grade on every test there was. I really wanted to maximize that education, and I really appreciate San Joaquin allowing me to do that.
Well, I have to compete with Miss Mathis here. Well, I graduated with high honors. I was third in my class of 103, and I was on law review, as was Miss Mathis. And I wrote an article that had been, or a comment that had been reviewed by the National Law Journal in New York. And I also really...
And the title of that comment was...
Is the government
taking the Veritas out of the vino?
Taking the it was, is the government taking the Veritas out of the vino, and it had to do with a commercial speech, touted, the ability to tout the benefits of drinking wine, and whether that should be, how that should be regulated. But I also want to say, as Karen did, that I was a reentry student. I was actually 53 years old when I started law school. And I have to thank Jan and Sally for their encouragement. I had actually applied for the paralegal program, never even really giving law school a serious thought because of my age. And I took the exam for the paralegal program, and I got a telephone call from Pam, who at that time was the head of the paralegal program, and to congratulate me and tell me I passed and that I had the highest score she'd ever seen. And then, off the record, she sincerely and seriously recommended that I apply to law school rather than go into the paralegal program. And I have to say that this was July of 1991, and classes started in late August of 1991. And I said, well, how can I do this? How can I do this? It's too late. And she says, well, I've already talked to Jan about you. She said, I want you to go in and talk to Jan. I went in and met Jan, and Jan said that they would admit me conditionally, because I hadn't taken the LSAT, but because of my record, my abilities, and their assessment of me, my college record, that they would take me provisionally. And so in October, while I was in my first year of law school dying because I didn't understand anything that was going on, I had to take the LSAT to boot. And I didn't have any time to prepare for the LSAT because I was struggling keeping up with reading cases and briefing them. But needless to say, I must have passed
250 pages a night, by the way.
But anyway, I must have passed the LSAT well enough because the rest is history, and did make it through. We met in law school. Particularly it was contracts that I think we became friendly, and Larry Artinian.
I don't know, but Joan and I have been each other's escort for every law school event since then.
We're dating.
It's been, no, we're not actually, but it's been wonderful. It was a wonderful experience.
We've been very good friends for over 20 years.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of San Joaquin College of Law Today, presented by San Joaquin College of Law, a nonprofit law school committed to educational excellence and community service. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the position or views of San Joaquin College of Law. This program has been produced in conjunction with the Community Media Access Collaborative. We invite you to join us in the future as we explore issues and events within the law school which are of general interest as well. For more information about San Joaquin College of Law, please visit our website at www.sjcl.edu or call 559-323-2100.